Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next The Promised Neverland video. This one is going to be my live reaction to the final chapter of The Promised Neverland, so chapter 181. I haven't read it yet. I have the viz.com, Shonen Jump page up. I can see here, latest chapter, chapter 181. I haven't clicked into it yet, so I haven't even seen like a cover page or anything like that. We know it's the final chapter, so what I'm going to be doing for this sort of review is doing two videos. So this first one is going to be my live reaction, so I'm literally just gonna read through it. You'll get my reactions, some brief thoughts, and then later on today I'll put up my usual review of the chapter. Then at some point next week, probably more towards the middle of the week, I will be putting out a video where I talk about my thoughts, my initial thoughts on The Promised Neverland as a whole, so the entire series now that it is done, basically. But I'll also just quickly add in here before I start that this won't be the end of the Promised Neverland content on my chapter, with just these final discussion videos on chapter 181 as well as the overall series video. I will be continuing to review the anime when it continues on my channel also, so look forward to that. So, Promised Neverland content not ending right now on the channel. So final, I suppose, thoughts before I get into reading this chapter are basically that I think they're in a tough position. I don't know if this is going to fully deliver as a final chapter. I definitely have not been as negative as some fans have been to the series over its last few months. But definitely they've written themselves into a corner with the situation they've created going into this last chapter of basically, you've teased what the reward for the promise is for about 40 chapters. Then in the second last chapter, you reveal what that reward is. Emma has lost her memories of her family and is sort of separated from them, and so doesn't know who they are. It seems like she's never going to get to see them again. And then they tease right at the end that potentially Ray and some of the others have actually spotted and found her. So what are they going to do? Are they immediately going to somehow in this chapter reverse the memory loss and happy ending? Or are they still going to do the happy ending but commit to Emma basically being this sort of new person and she has to sort of start again with them? Or will they do something different? I personally don't really think there is the time in just one chapter for anything particularly crazy to happen. So I do think this is just going to be a somewhat pretty standard. I think they will end on the general idea of it is this family mostly together now, all living together, and sort of echo the start of the series of the idea of, I live here with my family, we're not blood related, and do it here, but they actually live in peace now. They're not cattle children anymore. They're free in the human world. But yeah, let's get into it here. So chapter 181, let's click into this. Okay, so we get final chapter, Beyond Destiny. Big double page color spread of Emma on her own, sort of separate from everyone else, and then everyone else walking across the beach. Don't know if that says anything necessarily about the chapter. It looks like it says here 30 pages, so I think the confirmation that it was going to be a 27-page chapter is going to be true. But yeah, nice cover page, final chapter. So what do we start off with here? Finding just one person on this vast planet. That is a tremendous task to accomplish. We have to do it. Is this a double page spread? No. So that's interesting. Okay, so they're looking at all the scans, I suppose. Is this how the kids went about finding Emma? We searched and searched, but we couldn't find her. 2 years passed without much progress. Okay, so we didn't actually know that. I got the sense there was a sort of a time skip, but now we get that, okay, there's 2 years, obviously. She's nowhere to be found. How could we have no clues after looking so hard? She's alive, right? She's in the human world. Could it be that even though she's in this world, we're destined to never see her again? That's an interesting phrasing there. Separating her from us was the reward for the promise. That's basically correct, yeah. That they just acknowledged that this was basically almost this petty act from the one just to take something from them. Dawn says, don't say that, it's just that we haven't searched everywhere yet. Where else can we search? Forbidden zones. Okay, that's interesting. You know, like when Norman asked us to search for Mujika and Sanju, maybe there are places like that here too. Areas where we can't go or aren't allowed to. And we see obviously a slightly older Gilda here. It's pretty nice. We see the other kids are like, that's probably correct. Norman is there. We see Vincent and some of the other lambdas. There's Barbara. Is that Zazie in the background? A country that doesn't exist anymore. Okay, so that's obviously where Emma is. Regions and countries that were destroyed by war or disasters. Places where people won't be living because they don't exist in 2049. Okay, never giving up. No matter how much we search, we come up empty, no matter what the reward was. Even if we're destined to never see her again. We're going to change it. We're going to fight back, me and everyone. So this is Phil now, and we see that, yeah, okay, because they now confirmed that 2 years have passed, this does confirm, like, that was Phil from last chapter. He just obviously looks different because he's aged from, like, what would he be, like, he was in around 6, so the 2 years passed, so he's like 8 now, so he should look very different, of course. So nothing in this area, and it seems like we've caught up to where the last chapter was. They're in this kind of big sort of marketplace area, which is where Emma was at the end of the last chapter. No luck on our side either. We can't stay much longer. We're going to miss the bus, which is what they said last time as well. Yeah, let's go home. After we meet up with Norman's group. Oh, so here we are catching up with the last chapter. We see Emma up on the sort of elevated area. They walk by. They don't seem to immediately spot her, and they're like, oh, we'll look in the next area. And we see, like, yeah, her run past, Ray is running off. Ray gets a tug on his back from someone, and it says, over here, Ray. And obviously okay, so they're going for the kind of ghost sort of, you know, destiny is kind of going to bring them together here. So that's, I think it's Isabella, Hugo, and which kid is this? I'm gonna guess Connie, because it would make sense that Connie, as sort of the first kid who, like, we saw sort of, you know, killed by the farm system basically in the series, it would make sense that she's the one who to direct them there. But we'll go on. Go without me. So they're all like, Ray only got this sense, so what's driving Ray? He's running off. He runs past the shop that Emma and the old man are in. So he's not being fully guided. And he's like, maybe it was my imagination. So then, okay, this is pretty interesting. The old man says, huh? And he's like, where's your necklace? And she's just like, oh, I don't know. I'm going to check outside. So she goes outside and her necklace is on the ground, and she's like, there it is. And she looks up, and there's Ray, Norman, Dawn, Gilda, Jillian in the background. So this is the big reunion here. And how many pages are we in? 12, 13. So we've still got like half the chapter left. So let's see what they're going to do here. So they're all like, there you are. And they're all like, Emma. Huge celebration upon finding her again. But of course, the idea is that she doesn't know who they are, I guess. So the question obviously is going to be like, what happened? Because if we go back a few pages, when we saw her, she did still have the necklace on. Yeah, so how did she just randomly lose it? And this is the thing that sort of, you know, brought them together. That's interesting, because like the necklace was sort of kind of important with the Kuvitidala stuff, like earlier on in the series, but it was never really mentioned beyond that. So they're all like, we're glad you're okay, we've been looking for you, stupid Emma. How could you do that to us, disappearing all of a sudden? And they're like, And she says, who are all of you? So here's the confirmation. She doesn't immediately get her memories back, and so this is a huge reaction of like, Emma's like, what? And because she doesn't remember, they're all like, what? So, okay, this is good so far. It's not an immediate sparking of her memories or anything like that. And then they also note, she doesn't have the numbers on her neck. And they're like, she's not Emma? No, we thought we found her. She just looks like her. And then Ray notices the necklace and is like, no, this is Emma. You lost your memory, didn't you? And they do show a little flashback panel to the one saying, "I want your family." And Ray says her family really was taken away from her. So this is Ray remembering that. Because she did say that section of it to everyone. But then the lie was that, like, but I can't take your family from you because, 1,000 years of fun is good enough for me. That's what the lie was, but in fact you did want everything. So we move on. Let's see. Her family was taken away from her, separated from us, and not only that, her memory and all of the connections with us were taken from her. No wonder we couldn't find her. And they're all like, that was the reward? And okay, so we're getting a further flashback to the one here, and I suppose the promise and her agreeing to it. He says, "Are you sure you'll be alone? The future that you want beyond this wish is to laugh and live with your family." Yeah? And that's what she says. "But this isn't a sacrifice. It's settling things. Settling my selfish requests. I don't want to kill the demons. I don't want to lose anyone anymore either. Of course I want to be with everyone. I don't want to forget them. And this decision will probably anger them too. But this way everyone can go to the human world. There will be no demons. No one will be food. We'll never have to be terrified. We'll never have to kill. Both humans and demons can be free. We can completely stop the tragedy that we've kept repeating up until now. From now on, everyone can live happily." Okay, so it's interesting. So he's asked to take that from her and has asked her, but this is what you want beyond this. And she just notes that, no, this is sort of a sacrifice to settle things of like, I suppose she's accepting this of kind of like some of those idealistic kind of points of her kind of being selfish, almost stubborn, set in her ways of like, this is the way it has to be. This crazy thing no one thought they could accomplish, and she kind of brought everyone along with her. She's kind of acknowledging now at this point that this is sort of the payback for some of that stuff in a way. But she says, "Thank you, it's the best future I could hope for." And so we get a quick shot of the one as we transition back to the present day. "You can't be serious. What the heck? It's true that we're alive in this same world. We can all go to the human world alive. I'm not being sacrificed. Yes, it wasn't a lie. You weren't sacrificed, but you alone, only you, had so much taken away." And Gilda's like, "No, remember us, don't you? It's me, Gilda. You recognize us, right, Emma?" They're all getting very emotional about this, but it's just freaking Emma out here. She pushes them away, and Phil, we get his reaction here. She's scared. She really doesn't know who we are, and so it's hitting everyone really, really hard here. How many pages left? So about 10 or so pages left. We'll see how it goes. So Norman starts crying and says, "Thank goodness." And we're all like, what? "Even if your memory's gone, I'm glad you're alive. You're eating well, staying healthy without any injuries, smiling, looking happy and not alone. We were able to meet you here, and I'm really happy about that. We've all been well. We're all going to school now." And so we get a shot of like, I suppose everyone doing their thing. What, Jillian is like hairdressing or something like that. Anna looks like she's in school. Nigel, I suppose, has an actual laptop now, so that's pretty good. The younger kids are in school. That seems pretty cool. Sislo and I and everyone are starting to feel better. Medicine was developed thanks to the technology in this world and Adam's special DNA to suppress our side effects. So they resolved that. That's good. I'm happy about that. That was definitely needed to be referred to again. So that explains Norman is here. We see Sislo has an artificial leg. He has basically one of the... if you've ever seen the Paralympics, I suppose, the runners in the Paralympics who have kind of missing legs get the sort of, I think they're called like blades or whatever. They're kind of like springy things. So I suppose he's still staying active. And is he on a racetrack? It looks like that potentially is where he is. Vincent looks like he's doing like chemistry or something or other. Zazy's reading a book, so I suppose he's getting the education he didn't get before. Using that medicine, the children from the mass production farms don't need the help of respiratory systems and can even walk on their own. Okay, so that's a positive ending for the mass production children. the way they talked about them before, it felt like there was like zero hope for them whatsoever. Like, what are they going to do? But it looks like they're actually making progress. That's interesting. Mike Rattray is a neutral person and is acting as our guardian, giving us a hand when needed. It might be to prevent us from doing whatever we want to, but still. So they're okay with the situation they're in. They have a certain amount of freedom. I still can't forgive the Rattray clan, but we're all getting along well. Aishi hasn't killed me either, for now. Okay. So, yeah, she still has her kind of wolves or dogs or whatever. Chris woke up too. Okay, so Chris is fine after his injury from a while ago. And also, we're working hard to make it a bright future. I'm glad we were able to come to this world. We're all happy now. Everything's fine. It's just as you wished for. The results of your decision turned out to be great. Everything we have, you gave it to us. You paid for it with everything you had. But even so, I wanted to be with you, have you smiling with us. And then what do we get here? I don't know. I can't remember anything about this person. Oh, so this is Emma's thoughts. I can't remember anything about this person or these kids at all. But, so here we go, getting towards the end. Only a few pages left. Emma begins to cry. So this was what was set up from last chapter, that she doesn't remember the specifics from her dreams, but the emotions of what she felt, she does remember and still feel, of like that she's missing something, that feeling of longing in a way. So she's like, why am I, even though I don't know them, though I don't know anything, I can't remember why. So we cut back to the necklace here. Why does it feel warm but also painful in my heart? I wanted to see you. I feel like I've always wanted to see all of you. So everyone starts crying now. There was a future we wanted. There was a destiny we couldn't change. We fought back and fought back. We grasped something. We lost something. We cut to the one saying, you'll never see your family again. So what? We wanted to see you. We've missed you for so long. It's okay if you forgot, even if you can't remember, even if you're different from who you used to be. That's why once more and forevermore, screw destiny, let's live together. Okay. So, yeah, I guess they are just living in this place now. And we show the last panel is like okay with some birds flying free. The end. So, like, I've got to say, like, that is not a particularly strong ending in my mind. It hit what it needed to based on the setup from the last chapter of, like, I appreciate that they committed to Emma actually properly losing something and them not just giving her memories back. I think that would have been a terrible thing to do, given that you only had one chapter of setup for this thing. So that is something that they're going to have to work on again, that they have to accept. You know, Emma kind of is this different person. They'll have to start again with her, but that they're just happy to have found her. That definitely fits into sort of the kind of ideology of the series, kind of what it's been about, of like, you know, yeah, like, okay, there's some hurdles we'll have to get over, but yeah, we'll do it. This has worked in some way. They're making the best out of every single situation. They're being idealistic here in a situation that they've encountered that they don't like. They're doing things the way Emma would do, I guess. I think the problem with this chapter is just that, like, they hit kind of a lot of the same beats that they've hit fairly recently. Yes, it is exactly what, in a way, you want from the Promised Neverland, of focusing on this, just the family being happy. But I think it's just the sense of, like, this chapter is both, like, the end of the plot and also the epilogue in one, when I think it should have been extended out. Now, typically, I tend to prefer big stories like this coming to an end to have a relatively extended epilogue. I think it's something you need to just, you know, in a way, deliver on those kind of ending moments, to show where the characters are at this point in time. And while they technically have done this by quickly covering, like, oh, like, Norman's lieutenants, like Sislo and so on, here's where they are, and quickly covering an idea of, like, oh, here's the other kids, here's what they're doing, of, like, Nigel has all these cool gadgets at this point in time, and Gillian's going to become a hairdresser or something like that. I think the problem here is that, like, arguably, probably what they should have done is, yes, have the sort of ending for now beyond this moment if they're all going to live together here, in this new place, basically, with this old man, I guess. But then cut to, like, the future and show, like, you know, do they have kids of their own? I think just ending on a moment like that, given that at least to some extent the aspect of this series has been like a lot of them sort of especially the moms and stuff like that, Isabella, forced to have kids basically to continue this thing. There'd sort of be a value in showing like the cattle children having kids of their own, but they're being free. But I don't know. It's tricky. I think maybe one of the problems here is that I don't feel there was good enough setup for this sort of new place where everyone's living. Like, the old man from the last chapter is, like, fine. It fits him as well to now have this situation where the kids are going to... He's going to have a lot of people in his life now after losing everyone from before. Emma now kind of has resolved her issues, and I suppose has those people that she felt she was missing, even if she doesn't remember them, and then they have her back. Like, it hits all those notes. It's just, I don't think they gave it enough time right at the end. Does this ruin The Promised Neverland? No, I don't think so. Like, it's a relatively weak ending, but I will also say that I do tend to find that with manga, at least some of the ones I've read, that ending is usually not the strengths of a lot of manga, whether that be the writers or just editorial stuff and them being rushed to wrap it up in X amount of time or whatever. But I've never particularly found endings to be a huge strength of like series. Now, I don't necessarily agree with the idea of like this is missing like so much that like we're missing everything. Like, we needed to have a whole arc where we fix problems in the human world, and then we had a separate arc where we united the humans and the demon world together. Just because if you go back and read it, like, part of the promise was that make it impossible to basically transfer from either side of the world to each other. So from a much earlier point in the series, they'd already established that it was never going to be this thing of trying to get peace between both sides. But it does feel a bit weird to end after all this time on this note of just the sort of family together, but no real sense of like the demons were almost like a factor in the story, like, at all. That's what I'd say here, of just like, I can't imagine that like even the writer is necessarily particularly happy with this is exactly the way that they wanted to end this. Because this just feels very middle of the road. That's probably the best place I'd say it with this one. It's just that like it just feels like this is what you needed to do, but nothing more. Like that's what I'd say here. Of like, I'd have to reread the whole chapter again to get everything out of it. But like in general, not particularly strong. Of like, to me, there was like no real risk taken at all. Nothing particularly, sort of in a way, exciting necessarily happening here. It's just the sort of ending you expected. Now, maybe there's some hope that with the anime, maybe the anime when it gets to the end can expand on some stuff. But like, I can't see most, I think, fans being particularly too impressed by this chapter, honestly. It really just felt like, yeah, it ended. And that's coming from someone who has been, I think, within the fandom, like, pretty positive about a lot of the recent events and so on. I did reread the whole series over the course of the week, and reflecting on it all, I actually do really like pretty much all of the series. Like, there's ups and downs, I think, along the way, but in general, I think it hits most of the main beats. I think this ending does stand out as being pretty uninspired and not hitting as much as you need to. It felt like, pretty much like, we're giving you a couple of extra pages because it's your last chapter, wrap everything up. And I don't know why, because this is a very popular series. Like, if I remember correctly, like, well, in the recent Shonen Jump from like last year type thing, this was like right up there ahead of some of the more popular series than you'd maybe think. This had a huge surge of popularity, I think, in the last year. So, because of the anime, I think, partly. So, I can't see this being sort of some sort of an editorial thing where like they rushed the writers to make this happen, like was kind of the case with like Bleach behind the scenes of like that was just a whole mess about how that series came to an end. It feels to a degree like that kind of happened here, because I think just they turned probably what should have been about a maybe 5-6 chapters wrapping up the series into 2, and I can't feel particularly strongly about this. Again, I'll have more to say about this when I do my proper review and I get a chance to reread the whole chapter again, and just some time sort of off camera just to think about things. But yeah, just like, it's solid. That's about all I can say. Like, you probably saw it on my face, like when I read the last page, of just like, whoa, that's really it. I kind of expected that to be all they do, but I was shocked that that is all they did. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts were, your first reactions to the ending of The Promised Neverland. How do you feel about the series coming to an end now? But yeah, like I said, my full review in my usual style will be coming up a little bit later on today, so look out for that video also. But yeah, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.